a coincidence. They knew I was giving the share. So
that's what it was.
Recording. Okay.
in progress. Yes. Okay. Good evening, Erev Tov. So we'll carry on the topic we started discussing the last couple of days. Question about somebody who has an internet site and running that or leaving it operating on Shabbat. Now, the truth is, when this question was asked, most questions, when they're asked, are new questions, but it was really at the cutting edge of technology. As we've discussed, nowadays, this is already old. There are much newer and fresher and different things which come up all the time. But it's fascinating always with these kind of questions, to look where is the precedent? Where did the poskim go? Where did they look? What are the questions that have come up before from which we can derive the same principles as well? So we started speaking last night. If somebody has a website, we said the question is going to divide into two. There's one thing, if you have a website which just provides information, people can come and look and click on the links and read what it has to say. Or if you have a website which is offering a service where you're selling something, where there's e-commerce, it's going to be a little bit more of a complicated question. But either way, so we began discussing how the main issue which the poskim deal with here is lifnei iver. Whether it's a question of lifnei iver, the fact that you have a site which is operational, somebody could go and could click on it and start buying things. Are you therefore responsible for them breaking Shabbat? So this question comes up already before the internet. Poskim discussed, for example, there was a question about if somebody owns a vending machine and has that vending machine in their Reshut Rabim in a public place, which the machines generally are, where Jewish people might come and might buy from it on Shabbat, would that be a question? Or similarly, a bank. This was really interesting. About 25 years ago, Bank Mizrahi sent an inquiry to the chief rabbi. At the time was Chief Rabbi Lau, the father of the current chief rabbi. And they asked him what was the status. Could they leave their bank machine, the bankomat, where somebody can come, they can draw money, they can perform transactions, checks, etc. Could they leave that operated on Shabbat or not? A number of issues, which we'll discuss, a lot of similar issues which come up there, which are similar to the issues of owning a website. So Rav Lau's answer at the time was, go to Machon Somet. And they sent the pniyah to Machon Somet. You can find this is in Tchumen, volume 20 or 21, I think it is. There's a whole article there explaining why in the end, I think at the end of the day, they were allowed to keep it. They had to put up a sign that said, this is not for use on Shabbat. And then if somebody used it on Shabbat, but there's a whole tshuva over there, which explains what it is. And a number of the issues that are raised are similar to the issues we're discussing over here regarding a website. So we mentioned last night here in B'Maariv Bazak, there are six possible issues which are raised that might be related to owning a website on Shabbat. The first one, and this is really the primary issue. This is going to be the main issue. Once this one falls away, so all the others are going to be relatively easy to work around. But the first issue is the question of lifnei iver, as we mentioned. So last night we said that there's a difference always whenever you have a case of lifnei iver, is it chad avred nahara, trei avred nahara, meaning where a person could not perform that action, where they could not possibly come to that sin without what you have done, that would be an isur of lifnei iver d'oraita on a Torah level. If the situation is such that the person could still come to that transgression, right? You're just making it easier for them, but they could do it without you. So that's no longer going to be, according to most poskim, that is not lifnei iver anymore, but that is still going to be a question of Messiah of Re'avera, of assisting in the transgression. One of the classical sources where this is learned, the first Mishnah in Shabbat. The first Mishnah in Shabbat talks about you have an ani and a balabayit, right? You have one person standing inside the house, which is the Reshut HaYachid, which is the private domain. You have one person standing outside the house, which is the Reshut HaRabim, which is the public domain. And for one person to take an object and take it from one domain, place it to the other, is the Melacha of Hotza'ah. And the Mishnah over there tells us that if, for example, the balabayit is standing inside and he picks up the object and he puts it outside there's an ani standing outside and he places the object on his hand, so he's going to be chayav. He's the one who's transgressing, and the other person is going to be patur, which means exempt. And the Gemara says there's patur probably mutar, and vice versa. And Tosfot, right at the beginning of Masechet Shabbat, ask the question. They say he might be patur from hotza'ah, but surely there's an issue. What happened to lifnei iver? What happened to the fact that he's allowing the person to, he's helping him to transgress? And they say even if it's not lifnei iver, maybe it's messiah. Surely that should be a prohibition. It also gives the answer that he gives over there. But what we see this concept of lifnei iver, also messiah. So bringing it back to our website that we have running on Shabbat. So we said yesterday, right? A person, if your website is down or if your website is closed, a person wants to find a different website. Person wants to find other ways to occupy themselves on the computer, on the internet. They can do it, and therefore, lifnei iver, it seems it would not be, but messiah perhaps. But there are a number of reasons, a number of different leniencies, which each one in and of themselves might not be enough. But when we combine all of them, it would seem to be that this case would not be a problem. Just having the website there would not be a problem of messiah. It could be due to the fact that a number of different svarot are raised. As I said, the din of lifnei iver, there's vast halachic literature on it, and machlokot on every single point in the Rishonim and in the Achronim. But for example, the fact that we're dealing with, first of all, that it's an isur, maybe an isur d'Rabbanan. Second of all, the person who is doing it might be mezid, right? The poskim discuss when we say lifnei iver, right? You're placing a michshol, you're placing a stumbling block in front of the blind. I.e., the implication is the person maybe didn't know that they didn't realize that they were going to transgress, and you've caused that or you've assisted in that. If the person is knowingly and willfully going to transgress anyway, they're amazed. Are you then still responsible for lifnei iver? Maybe yes, maybe no, but that is one svara which the poskim are lenient about. Another one is the fact that, as we said last night, lifnei iver would apply the more direct the action is. Over here, you're not really doing anything directly, meaning it's got nothing to do with the guf hachefetz, with the object itself. The classic case, lifnei iver, is you pass something to somebody, you hand the wine to the nazir, you hand the non-kosher food to somebody else, and whatever it may be. Here, there is no object that's in place, certainly not that you're handling. You actually haven't done anything at the time of the avera, right? All you did was you had a website, it was set up, that was before Shabbat. Before Shabbat, anybody's allowed to go on. On Shabbat now, at the time when the Avera might be taking place, you aren't doing anything. And therefore, that plus one more svara, which the poskim mentioned, is the idea of tliyah, meaning if we assume that most of the people that are going to be entering the website on Shabbat are going to be non-Jewish, right? So if we assume that leaving it open, you're leaving it for non-Jews for whom there is no prohibition, then that would be another reason. Basically, based on all these svarot together and many others, so the poskim say that lifnei iver or messiah is probably not going to be a primary concern if I just leave my website open on Shabbat. Okay, what about, we mentioned, if there is a transaction taking place, commercial transactions that are taking place through the website. And this could be that you're actually selling something. It could be that you're selling content. So somebody wants to watch a video, wants to watch a shiur, wants to watch, if they want to watch the shiur on Shabbat, you've got bigger problems. But they want to download music, whatever it may be. So there may be, if they are purchasing, we know there is an isur. There is the gzera of mekach or memkar of business transactions on Shabbat. That would certainly be the one who is purchasing at that point would be transgressing. Do you as the owner, the one who is selling the content, transgress at that point? Probably not, because you're not doing anything, you are completely passive. There is a tshuva of Rabbi Kenigsberg, we've mentioned it in the past, where he says that if a transaction is taking place with your property that is chal on Shabbat, that would be a prohibition. Many poskim argue against it, but again, so Rav Chalamirta, this is relatively easy to get around. That if one says you're making a transaction, that the credit card, whatever it is, would only go through 24 hours later when Shabbat is out, and then one would get around that without any problems. Another point which is raised here, related, is schar Shabbat. This is also something we've spoken about. In other words, even if you aren't transgressing anything, but if you are benefiting, you're getting monetary gain based on something which took place on Shabbat. So again, here, sometimes you have websites you have to pay to access, right? Many newspapers and different things, you have to pay a subscription fee. If the case was that you pay a subscription fee once and then you can access the website the entire month or the entire year or whenever it is, so as we've spoken previously, that would be then havla'ah, meaning you're not paying specifically for Shabbat, you're paying for the access to the content for an entire period. Shabbat is included within that. There'd be no issue here of schar Shabbat. If the website operates in such a way that every time you enter, you have to pay, probably not the best business model, but if that is the way it is, or for there's a one-time fee on that occasion, when you click, you have to pay. So then that would be a problem, meaning the person who owns the site, who's getting the money from that, is getting the money from the person for entering on Shabbat. That could be a problem of schar Shabbat. So that would be something which you'd have to avoid. The next one, so that's 3 so far. We spoke about Lifnei Iver, we spoke about doing a business, we spoke about schar Shabbat, getting the money. What about, there is a broader concept of hana'ah mi chilul Shabbat, of benefiting from chilul Shabbat. So for example, we know, and again, depending on who did it, how it was it done for you, was it done for somebody else, b'shogeg, b'meizid, all sorts of discussions in the poskim. But somebody cooked food on Shabbat, right? You can't eat that food, at least on Shabbat itself, certainly not. Would there be a question here of hana'ah? And the answer is this probably, almost certainly, is not relevant to the case of the website. It's really subsumed in the previous thing we spoke about. You're not benefiting from the actual, there's no object which is taking place, which you're getting benefit from on Shabbat itself, you as the owner of the website. What you might be benefiting from is the money and getting the salary, and that's the schar Shabbat, which we discussed previously. Okay, so there's 2 more. How long have we got? 2 minutes. Okay, so the last 2, which are raised here as well, there's a question of Maariv Ayin, right? Maariv Ayin always comes up. The question of, does it look like you're doing something wrong? Does the fact that we know that if somebody has a business, we discussed this a couple of days ago as well, somebody has a business or you have a non-Jew working on your behalf or renting something out for you, if it's very public and it's known and it's clear that a business belongs to a Jew, even if you aren't doing anything wrong at that point, we're worried about Maariv Ayin. We're worried about chashad. We're worried people are going to see that the Jew's business is operating on Shabbat. They might think that he's doing something wrong. Would the same thing apply to a website if people see that the website is operating? So first of all, who's going to see? Right? Anybody who's going to see it, who's going to be on the website on Shabbat, is by definition somebody who's not keeping Shabbat, and that may not be what we're talking about when we say chashad. But more than that, it seems that everybody knows that you have a website. So much of this is automated. So much of it is being done, behind the scenes. Even when a lot of these websites that you go into and there's a service representative and you have a chat with them. Most of the time, there's nobody there. That's a chatbot. That's a robot. That's not. We're going to talk about this more on the Wednesday night show. But people know that the website being run, you're not doing anything to maintain it. It's all automatic, and therefore the question of chashad would seem to fall away as well. There is one more issue which the poskim discuss, but I'm going to leave it here, and we'll maybe get onto that next week. Rabbi Hanania ben Akasha Omer, Tzakadosh Baruch Hu Zakot Yisrael, Lefichach Balem Tzom Mitzvot, Shnei Ma'adonai Chafetz L'man Tzidko, Yagdil Torah V'Yadut.